We're continuing our spring section with extending applications with aspect-oriented programming. We're going to be specifically looking at creating join points matching multiple point cuts. So if we go to our aspect config file, and all these files that we're working with can be found in the playlist below the like button. We configured them in the previous videos, so this is just a continuation off it. In here, we've dealt with the execution of our point cut. However, we have been rather limited right here. We have like a void, and we have these right here. This basically says we get any method for any class that's inside of our package, which is our point cuts. Now, what if we want to modify this? We can. We can change our execution to be what I have below, just like this. And what this is doing is it's saying it's going to get anything that's public inside of here. Anything at all. So when we execute our point cut like this, being inside of here, we know that we have this right here underneath it, private void my point cut method. And before this happens, we are going to call our logo, hence the app before. So every time that this runs, if we go to our main, we can see that we've added some items inside of here. And we're just going to print these as well. So if I go here and I print, and then we go to a run, it's going to show that we have a logo on front of everything. Now, look at our list. We see that we have our logo printing out 4 times before we actually get something. That's the same thing for our bread and for our milk. So that's a problem. Let's actually look at these. We can see it's because we have all these get item IDs, get item name, get item price, getting all these things and then printing them out. We have 4 things here, that's why it's doing it 4 times. But we obviously don't want that. It's a little bit annoying. So what can we do? Well, the first thing that we can do is go back to our application file. And inside of here, let's just say, well, we know that in our main, we have these print statements, right? Well, what if we only want to do it for the print statements, not the display? We can do that. All we need to do is comment this out, and we are going to bring this in, where we change this to be a star. Well, we're not changing that part. What we're changing is we are adding a dot print and then a star right here. And that's basically saying any method that starts with a dot print, we're going to display. And this display, by display, I mean we're going to have this app before right here. So we're going to call this. I accidentally hit debug. We should be running this. And when we run it, we can see that we have our logo printing out for these, but our list prints out normally. So that is exactly what we want. And that's going to be how we would do this, like printing right here. So now that that's done, we can look at something else. What about our item list class? Now let's add some more methods inside of here. So to do this, we're going to go to our item list class. Inside of here, we're going to add item to list, where we can actually add an item. We can finally add an item into here, right? We have get items, we have set items, but let's add an item to our list, and we can also add it at a specific index of our list. So we have these 2 methods new. Now we don't have to make beans for them because they're still part of our list class. Remember, we only need beans for the classes. The classes are like beans. We can go back inside of our aspect. Now inside of here, we can like configure them. So we know that we have our add point cut, and then we're going to have this add message right here. So what we're going to need is this add message, right? And this add message is basically saying, well, we want to perform an addition right here. Now back in our aspect configuration, we want to have new pointers for these methods right here to configure them. So we have these, we're going back in here, we are going to have our private void add point cut, and this add point cut is just a method name, but we want to make sure that we have the correct type of execution inside of here, which we do. We only want it to be for the dot add. That means when we call our main right here, we're actually going to be adding this in here. Whenever we have an add, we're going to be calling this, but before we do this point cut, we're going to have this add before, and this is going to tell us what we're adding in. So let's actually write this out. It's going to be all this code inside of here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it back up here, and then I believe we can just comment these out because we don't need to print these. Inside of here, what we're doing is just like before, we have our item 1, we have our item 2, we have our list, and then we're adding item 3 and we're adding an item 4. And then we use these methods to add them into our list. So we're just adding into here, and then we're just going to print out our list, mylist.display item list. So we're going to resume this, or we're going to play it again. And then from here, we should see that we have this add. Once we have this add right here, we hit our add, which is going to be this one, add item to list. We're going to perform an add operation by invoking the add item to list. Where does this come from? Well, we can go to our aspect configuration to find out. It's going to come from right here. Because we have this add inside of here, we're basically saying when we execute our point cut for the item list, because it has an add item to list, we are going to print this out, this before. And then once we do that, we can write that we have our argument supplied. This is right here. And then we have a raise.toString because we're storing the items inside of here, and then we're printing it out. Same thing for this other one right here for item 4. And then we're just going to print them in our list. So that's going to be all for our code right here. This is what we have. We're just looking at creating join points, matching multiple point cuts. Again, just a brief overview. What we did basically is in our item class, we did not touch anything. Inside of our aspect.config class, we had to make a few changes. We made a change to this so that it only does a logo printing, because remember this is tied with this. It only does a logo printing whenever we have a .print for the starting method. Similarly, this is only going to print out when we have this .add before our method. And these are relating to our item list. So this specifically is not relating to our item list really though, because you know how we have this public and then star star. Basically in our point cuts, anything that's public, we are going to get it. So in our item list, if we come in here, we can see that we have our, well, it's going to be a public. And since we have a .print, the only thing that's going to print is this print num items. So if we were to go to print this, we'd have a logo in front of this. And then for our actual add items, we would only have our adding part on here as well. So that's going to be what this does. This is our at before. This happens before we do that. And then our main is just calling and running all this. So again, that's all for our creating join points, matching with multiple point cuts. In the next video, we're going to look at defining point cuts using the within designator.